Hello everyone, here is Geraldo Lemos Neto from Belo Horizonte, Brazil, with the program To Know Spiritism. We are broadcasting directly from Belo Horizonte, from Portal Saber Espiritismo in Brazil, live to the DSN, Discover Spiritism Network, and also for Kardec Radio. Very, very good to have you all. We are today studying the work of Chico Xavier. Our program is the number 4. Welcome, everyone. As you know, the next Chico Xavier, we are talking about him since the last programs, was the most important medium for the Spiritist doctrine, a well-respected and known Brazilian citizen. In the next one, we are now studying the literary genres of the work of Chico Xavier. And this is very important because we're going to see that Chico Xavier, in his 525 published books, has written in all literary genres. The first one, we can see that many spirits have written through Chico Xavier. The most important ones, of course, is Emmanuel, the first one. In the middle, you can see the spirit of Humberto de Campos, who was a writer in Brazil, very known in Brazilian literature. The other one is also a poet and spiritist, Bittencourt Sampaio. And down below, you can see Castro Alves, poet from Bahia, and our second emperor, Peter II, also wrote through Chico Xavier. This is just an example because we know that in 75 years of automatic writing or psychography, Chico Xavier has received messages from more than 3,000 spirits. Well, let's talk about the narrative genre, which is a very important genre. You know, in literature is an instrument of communication and social interaction. It conveys the knowledge and culture of a people, of a country, or of a culture. The literature text is organized in literature genres. The literature texts are divided in 3 groups, or 2 groups, in verse, text in verse, and text in prose. And they are also divided in 3 great genres. The first one is the narrative genre. This is a kind of genre, or also known as epic genre, that has historical theme. Mostly they are the heroic deeds of a particular people or nation. The narrator tells the past facts, only observing and reporting the facts objectively, without interference, which makes the narrative objective. The epic texts tell the story of a people or nation, usually long texts involving travels, wars, adventures, heroic gestures, and exaltation of heroes, and also their deeds. They can contain nationalism, heroism, and the marvelous. In the past, they kept a tone of grandeur, which in the present they gave away. Well, let's see in the works of Chico Xavier which ones are the books in the narrative genre. In Portuguese, gênero narrativo, and we can see, although the first ones are the romances. The romances is a kind of narrative genre, also very important. It is a complete text with time, space, and well-defined characters of plausible character. And in the case of Chico Xavier, we can have these four or five most important romances. We can see here the Há 2000 anos in Portuguese, which in English 2000 years ago. 50 years later, another romance, the romance Ave Christ, the romance Renounce, and the later one, Messages from Inês de Castro. Those are examples of romances in the work of Chico Xavier. Chico Xavier's work was fought by historians 70 years ago, when he was receiving and publishing those books in the decades of the 30s and 40s. But nowadays, after recent discoveries and scientific papers done with doctorship and masters in historic facts of the Roman Empire, we have now more than 2,000 concrete evidence confirming many historical facts of Chico Xavier's romances, now recognized by the historians and the science. You can see those five most important books of Emmanuel here. In the next one, we are now going to talk about the fables. Fable is a subgenre of the narrative genre, and it's a text of fantastic character that seeks to be implausible. So it's not true. It's something very implausible. Has no resemblance to reality. The main characters are animals or objects. They talk, they speak, they act like human beings, and the purpose of it is to convey some moral lessons. So in the works of Chico Xavier, we also have the fables. And like this one, Cartilha da Natureza, from the spirit of Casimiro Cunha, a poet. In English, it would be the Cartilhas of Nature, and also the other one, the Christian Dawn, which is in Portuguese, Alvorada Cristã. Now we have the epic romances. The epic romances are very important also because they are special romances, and it's a narrative made in to emphasize heroic history, a history that has an impact all over the world. And so that we can say that in Chico Xavier's work there is one very special epic romance, which is Poe and Steven. Poe and Steven is the story of the Apostle Poe, the one that Saint Paul, that was converted to Christianism by Jesus himself in the doors of Damascus. And the story tells us every step of his life and also his relationship with Stephen, the first martyr of Christianism, which was killed by Poe at that time. And it's a very neat, very important book about Christianism, the first movements outside Jerusalem, outside the Palestine, towards the Gentiles. And it's a very important book. We can also see epic romances or in other books like Brasil, Coração do Mundo, Pátria do Evangelho, which is a very important book. In English, I don't think there is an English translation of this book, but would be Brazil, Heart of the World and Homeland for the Gospel. That's a book that tells us the story of Brazil from the spiritual world perspective, and it was written by the spirit of Humberto de Campos. We can see also the book A Caminho da Luz from Emmanuel. In English, I know there is an English version of this book, The Path of Light. It's a very important book also because Emmanuel tells us the story of the humanity through the perspective from the spiritual world. So this is a very, very important book also. Now we are going to talk about the novels. Novels, as you know, is a text that characterized as being between the longevity of the novel and the brevity of the story. The character characterizes essentially a few situations. So it's not as long as a romance, and also it's not as small as a short story. The novel has some perspective of a story and situations that are being treated of. We can see here some works of Humberto de Campos are novels, like Boa Nova, that in English would be Good News. I think there is a translation for this book in English, Good News. Good News is one of the main important books from Chico Xavier works, because he himself told me once that this book is one of his favorites, and because it tells us in a very beautiful way the path of Jesus himself and the relationship that Jesus related to the first disciples, the first ones that he met, and about his mother also, Mary, about Mary the Magdalene also. It's a very, very interesting, very touching book around the gospel also. Also from the spirit of Humberto de Campos, we have the Lázaro Redivivo, which talks about also Jesus and his teachings. And we could see also in the TV some novels from Chico Xavier. The works from Chico Xavier inspired some TV producers to make novels at the TV, like The Trip, A Viagem, from TV Tupi of São Paulo, and also TV Bandeirantes in São Paulo produced The Renounce, or in Portuguese, Renúncia. Now, the next one, we already saw the Boa Nova. This one is the Good News, a very important book from Humberto de Campos. And now we are going to talk about the tales and short stories. That's another subgenre of the narrative genre in Chico Xavier works. And the tale or short stories, as the name already said, it is a short story. It is a brief narrative text. Usually it's a fiction, it's not reality, and also it is written in prose that tells about routine situations, anecdotes, and even folk tales. It is characterized by previously portrayed characters. And some of those books from Chico Xavier works has those tales and short stories. Also from the spirit of Humberto de Campos, like those ones here, as you can see, Tips and Tales, Pontos e Contos in Portuguese, also Contexts and Apologues, Contos e Apólogos, and also in Portuguese, Contos desta e doutra vida, Top Accounts of the Other Life. Those three books are from the spirit of Humberto de Campos. Now another subgenre of the narrative is also from Humberto de Campos. You can see now a portrait of Humberto de Campos. He was from the state of Maranhão and lived his life in Rio de Janeiro. And he wrote lots of chronicles. Let's see now the chronicles. The chronicles are another type, another subgenre of the narrative way of writing. It is an informal narrative linked to daily life with colloquial language. It is brief with a touch of humor and criticism. The Chronicles has these characteristics. Let's see about Chico Xavier works on Chronicles. We can see here also those two books from the spirit of Humberto de Campos, Crônicas de Além Túmulo in Portuguese, in English is Chronicles and Beyond Tomb, and Letters and Chronicles from, in Portuguese, Cartas e Crônicas. They are both from the spirit of Humberto de Campos. How we are, you can see also some of his books there, Humberto de Campos, and I think we are good for now. We thank you so much for this opportunity to be with you, and in next week we're going to do the chapter 5 from Chico Xavier works, and we're going to talk about the works of Emmanuel and also the works of André Luiz. Thank you for being here, and see you next week.